There is a stigma around Kitchener stitch. Many knitters consider it to be confusing and hard to learn. In reality, it's not that bad, but it does require some basic sewing skills. Even though Kitchener stitch is the best way to create an absolutely invisible seam, there are other ways to join stitches that are quite nice and easier to do. In this video, I'll show you one of them. First, we need to set up our pieces so it's comfortable for us to join the stitches later on. First, cut the yarn, leaving a small tail. See, my tails are really short because we are not going to be using the yarn tail to join the stitches. And that's another good thing, another advantage, because we won't need to estimate the length of the yarn, and there is no chance that we'll run out of yarn halfway through the seam, so that's great. So cut the yarn and leave small tails. They should be long enough to weave them in later on. That's it. Then if you are working on 4 double-pointed needles, or if you're using the magic loop or any other case, it's always better to transfer stitches to double-pointed needles. So you have half of the stitches on one needle and half of the stitches on the other needle. That's important because we're going to be sliding the stitches, and the only way you can do it is if you have double-pointed needles. If you are working on a big project, then and you have a lot of stitches, then use a circular needle. Now arrange your work so that the yarn tail is at the left side of the work. If you're working on a sock or something that's worked in the round, you will have just one yarn tail, and it will most likely be here. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna flip your work so that the tail is at the left side. If you're joining 2 pieces like I do, then you have 2 tails. See, I have one on the left and one on the right. So I won't flip anything. I won't rearrange stitches in any way. I will just remember that this tail, the one on the left, is my kind of working tail. And the one on the right is just non-existent almost, because I'm going to ignore it completely. So I'm going to even hide it so I don't see it. So we have the tail on the left. Now that we have the tail on the left, we're gonna move the needles. That's the time when we slide the needles. So we're gonna move the needles so that the tips, the shorter tips of the needles, are on the right side. So that's how your work is gonna look. If you're working in the round, then you most likely will have to move both needles. In my case, I just did it once. And that's the setup. Now we are all ready to start grafting stitches. And we'll need a crochet hook for that. So take your crochet hook, and here's how you join stitches. First, insert the crochet hook knitwise under the front leg of the first stitch, and here's the important part. This first stitch should be on the opposite side from the tail. So see, I have the tail on the back piece, the one that's at the back. So I'm gonna start with the first stitch on the front. That's important if we want to finish our grafting with the last stitch being attached to the tail, so it's easier to secure the yarn. If you don't start like that, if you just start whenever you feel like, that's not really a big issue, but later on when you come to the end, you will have to secure the yarn differently, probably with a wool needle. So to avoid that, I suggest that you start from the first stitch that is on the side that is opposite to the tail, to the working tail, right? So we go knitwise into the front leg of the stitch, as if we are knitting the stitch, and slip the stitch off the needle. Now insert the hook, same way, knitwise, front to back, under the front leg, front to you, right? That's the way you see it. Front leg of the stitch on the opposite side, at the back, and slip it off. Now we have 2 stitches on the hook. Twist the hook a bit so that the head of the hook, the nose, looks down, and pull the stitch one through the other. Pull the second one through the first one, like this. Now we have one stitch left. And then we go again to the front piece and insert the hook this way off the needle, turn the head a bit down, and then pull through like this. And then go to the next piece and then slip the stitch there. It helps to pull both stitches a bit down. Then it's easier to move the hook through the stitches. And basically that's it. You pick one stitch here off the needle, pull it through. One stitch there off the needle and pull it through. That's it. If you're using the Russian knitting technique, then it will look differently. So you will insert the hook under the back leg of a stitch like this. So that's how you go into the stitch at the front. Then slip it off and pull one stitch through the other. And you go to the back leg at the stitch at the back. Off the needle and pull one through the other. And then again into the back leg of the stitch. Off the needle, pull it through, off the needle and pull it through. I'll join a few more stitches to show you how the seam looks in just a moment. Okay, here we go. I'm almost half through this piece and I'm gonna open the pieces so you see the seam better. Here's how it looks. It's pretty nice. It's not as invisible as the Kitchener stitch, but it doesn't have to be invisible, right? It's okay if it's just nice looking. Another good thing is, aside from the fact that we don't have to estimate the length of the tail, is that this stitch is a bit stretchy, but not too much. So it works great for shoulder seams because it's not too stretchy like this seam that is created by the Kitchener stitch. And that's all there is to this way of grafting stitches. If you need step-by-step photo instructions, click the link in the description. Thank you for watching this video and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next Thursday.